Hi, I'm Hamish Black, and welcome to Writing on Games. Picture the scene. It's late at night. You've just gotten through a cavalcade of ferocious battles. You're cut up, you're tired, you're hungry. A long drive separates you from the nearest outpost. Money's running low, the roads are dangerous when it's dark, and you're silently praying that the fumes your car is running on can get you to where you need to be. There's a quiet tension in the air as you cruise along the empty roads. Eventually, someone pierces the silence by suggesting that there's no way you're making it home, so you bust out the camping gear and prepare yourselves for a night on the cold, hard ground. However, as you sit laughing with your friends under the stars, eating whatever food can be whipped together from the ingredients you've collected, you all begin to reflect. You start to realise that everything might just be okay. That even if you come out with a few scrapes and bruises, you'll be all the closer for having gone through it together. Now, I've only played Final Fantasy XV for about 12 hours, so don't consider this a comprehensive review by any means, but this is a situation I've experienced constantly in my playthrough. Today I want to talk about it because, frankly, it's the part of the game I adore the most. Sure, the combat is flashy, but it suffers from the Witcher syndrome. Tying it so intrinsically to beautiful but inconsistent animations means you have little control over the moveset. Even aside from that, you have what I, as someone who isn't a massive Final Fantasy guy, would refer to as a typical Final Fantasy plot, one which dithers between mind-numbingly convoluted and totally nonsensical. And voice acting which is one lowered sample rate away from Shenmue. I mean, really, it's that bad. It's surprising to me then that moments as human as the one I described at the start are so frequent in this installment. It's not the kind of emotional gut punch that a moment like Aeris's death in 7 might have had for some folk, unless you're emotionally numb like myself. No, the humanity of Final Fantasy XV comes from its penchant for silent reflection. From moments like its long drives without much dialogue, but with no less being conveyed to the player. The seamless transition between driving, exploring on foot, and combat at once makes these processes and systems feel more immediate and more prolonged. You see, your experience no longer involves being dragged out of exploration to fight, but here the work doesn't just end when the battle ends. Instead of you being allowed to revel in your victory like in previous games, 15 revels in drawing out that process. For example, you still get rewarded XP for every battle, but it doesn't get given to you immediately. First you have to find a place to rest, like a hotel or a camping spot, to essentially cash in your points. This means that the intensity of the larger situation you find yourself in gives way to scenes of the guys laughing, playing cards round a campfire, and generally fooling around as your pal Ignis, who is the best boy and I will not hear a word otherwise, cooks you a meal. In doing this, it allows for something previous Final Fantasy games have never conveyed particularly well in my opinion: contrast. It's the subtle contrast between the ferocious highs of combat, with dazzling animations and frenzied attacks, and then the seamless transition to mundanity, as you remember that you're just 4 pals on a road trip. No pomp, no ceremony, just normalcy. It makes for a more intimate Final Fantasy than most. The game forces you to witness the bits between the super intense battles and the melodramatic monologues or whatever if you want to actually apply your rewards to your characters. As such, the game actively incentivizes engaging with the naturalistic humanity exhibited by this group of friends. Of course, lengthy monologues do exist, and your characters individually are total paint-by-numbers JRPG idiots. The gloomy anime boy, the nauseatingly cheery anime boy, the tribal tap bro, and, well, the guy who cooks for you and drives you places, so I guess he's alright. When given the opportunity to speak, these characters lean into these stereotypes pretty hard, and the overarching plot of getting Noctis to his bride-to-be quickly becomes stale. That said, the flaws of this story are only so noticeable because when these characters shut up, as the driving mechanic allows, it gives you a much better sense of their relationship than words possibly could. Ultimately, it feels like they're not concerned about the wider plot either. They're here for the road trip through an utterly gorgeous world as much as you are. What's more, it doesn't even matter that the characters are voiced terribly, or that the writing is a little shaky, or that their designs are fucking ludicrous. The relatability of this situation still shines through. We saw this with Watch Dogs 2 and DedSec. We don't need to care about the overarching goals of bringing down a massive corporation for online followers or whatever. Even if these people are idiots, we just need to see that they genuinely care about each other. That alone will make us more likely to care for them. We can't relate to being royalty, our friends being tasked to escort us to our arranged marriage and to keep us safe from monsters. What most of us can relate to, however, is the simple dynamics of close friendship and the need to find humour in bad situations. It's in the little things, like when Prompto or Noctis jump on the body of the car as opposed to sitting in their seats. It evokes feelings of restlessness, of playfulness, and ultimately of trust that their friends aren't going to do anything stupid behind the wheel. Little things like that, that's humanity right there, and it's most effective when you don't have to say anything to evoke it. You see, playing this game and witnessing this relationship gradually reveal itself took me back to my own experience being on the road with friends as we toured in bands. Exhausting ourselves playing intense shows in small rooms immediately gave way to the crashing realization that we had to pack up gear, make sure the promoter didn't screw us over in terms of payment, find a place to stay, and make a long drive. On these drives, you'd find you and your friends not saying a whole lot to each other, but you never really needed to. All your separate silences as you each stare out of your own window of the cramped van, worrying about food, money, and everything you're doing with your life, contribute to a collective, unspoken reflection and understanding of your shared situation. Ultimately, these kinds of bonds don't require words. Final Fantasy XV largely understands this. For all that it sometimes gets bogged down in the needs to exposit or say meaningless things, as you look at the photos Prompto takes along the way, you realise that the journey is more important than the destination. What's more, whatever holes in the characters might become apparent through inconsistent writing, if there's a genuine sense that the characters are rooting for each other, players will root for them too. As Final Fantasy XV proves, you can say 10,000 words about the state of your game's world and the ins and outs of every facet of every relationship within it. But in the end, this won't say half as much as one relaxed, reflective drive on the open road. So I hope you enjoyed this piece on Final Fantasy XV. Like I say, don't consider this a review because I've still got a ways to go with my playthrough, but the way it handled the camaraderie between you and your party was something I was itching to talk about. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank my patrons who truly make this show possible. I really wouldn't be able to keep doing this without you. If you like the show and want to support it, if you consider pledging, it would mean the absolute world. If you can't or don't want to, then I'm just thankful you watched the video. Also, stay tuned for next week's video, which is much bigger than anything I've ever taken on before, and I couldn't be more excited for you all to see it. And with all of that said, I'm Hamish Black, and this has been Writing on Games. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.